imagined what Molly would have to say about it. Today was her friend's first day back at Foyles Bookshop. The three of them were back together again. Despite the cold, wet weather, she smiled again. Alice, Molly, and herself were like the Three Musketeers. She giggled as her thoughts started to run away from her. What was the saying? Oh, yes. All for one and one for all. Victoria! She turned to scan the people walking along Charing Cross Road, their faces hidden from view as they bent their heads against the weather. Tilting her umbrella back a little, she saw Alice rushing towards her, holding her own umbrella high to avoid it clashing with others approaching her. The puddles splashed out with each step and covered the toes of her black ankle boots. Victoria waved at her friend. Isn't it awful? I'll be glad when the summer arrives. Alice smiled. Indeed, it will be nice to take Arthur to the park and let his little legs run around to tire him out. Victoria turned and adjusted her umbrella. Bless him. I can't believe he'll be 2 in a few months. Alice jumped aside as a car drove through a puddle. The dirty water splashed up over the foot of her boots, falling just short of the tops. The girls breathed a sigh of relief when the familiar sign of Foyles Bookstore came into view. Its large white lettering stood out in the greyness of the day. Novels, 3p and 2p, given on all returns. Alice beamed as she glanced across at Victoria. I'm quite excited to have Molly back working with us today. Yes, me too. Victoria tried to sidestep a puddle that was spreading across the pavement. I wonder how her wedding plans are going. Alice chuckled. I'm sure we'll hear today. The girls took turns to close and vigorously shake their umbrellas. Morning, Miss Appleton. Mrs. Laybourne. Mr. Ledbetter, their grey-haired manager, frowned at them as he watched them from just inside the doorway. Morning, sir, the girls chorused in return. Mr. Ledbetter smiled at the girls. I'm sure you are aware that your partner in crime is back today. The girls giggled. Victoria began unbuttoning her coat. I don't know what you mean, sir. Mr. Ledbetter chuckled. I'm sure you don't. Victoria glanced back outside at the pelting rain. It doesn't look like it's going to be the weather for putting the book racks outside today. Mr. Ledbetter frowned. Not at the moment, but it might clear up later. They carried on walking through the towering shelves of books that were all around them, following the drip marks on the tiled flooring, out to the back of the shop, to hang up their coats and to clock on. The usual musty smokiness of the second-hand books was buried beneath the dampness of wet clothing. Morning! Victoria yelled to the ladies milling around and received a chorus of replies. She slipped her coat off and hung it on a peg before turning to walk away. A dong rang out as ladies inserted their cards into the clocking-in machine. Molly came rushing in. Oh, goodness! I'm not late, am I? She took off her narrow-brimmed hat and ran her fingers through her long blonde hair. The women all giggled at Molly's flushed cheeks. There was a chorus of welcome back from around the room. Victoria grinned at her friend and stepped forward to give Molly a hug. Molly's usual floral scent was overpowered by the dampness of her coat seeping out into the sleeves of Victoria's white crinoline blouse. Nothing changes. She laughed and turned back to her coat, thrusting her hand inside one of the deep side pockets. She pulled out the brown envelope, studying it for a moment, before folding it in half and pushing it into the pocket of her black calf-length skirt. Molly poked out her tongue. Yes, very grown up. As I said, nothing changes. Victoria plucked her card from its slot, along with Alice and Molly's, and passed theirs over to them. In all seriousness, it's great to see you back here, where we can keep an eye on you. Molly's lips lifted at the corners. Thanks. I think I'll take that as a compliment, because you've missed me. She unbuttoned her coat. Alice laughed. Remind us, what time did you get to work at the munitions factory? She also stepped forward to wrap her arms around her friend. Best get yourself ready before Mr. Ledbetter comes looking for you. She stepped back. It's lovely to have you back. Molly took off her coat and gently shook it, before hanging it on a coat peg. The three of them stood in line, the clock constantly clicking, as each person in turn put their card into the slot and pulled it out again. Molly stood behind Alice, patient.